Today in Obscure Left-Hand Bridges, we're checking out a Yamaha RMX II from 1991. As far as I know, they first appeared in the 1988 catalogue and were superseded by the RMX III in the 92 catalogue. I suspect they were made by Ping in Taiwan, as a lot of the Taiwanese Yamaha hardware was. The RMX can go up and down a fair way with a deep recess route covered by a plastic insert. I tried to demonstrate the flutter here, but Nyquist worked against me, so we're just getting a sort of a wagon wheel effect. The Floyd Rose patents were still active at the time, so there's no string clamp at the bridge and the string lock is behind the nut. It's got some interesting features. The fine tuners travel with the saddles, not on a whale tail. The thread is in a thin zinc alloy casting, so some of these have become quite sloppy. Looking at an individual saddle, you can see how the thumb screw pushes the lever down to raise the pitch. I dumped the arm to remove the string tension before fine-tuning. I don't like to turn them with the full tension on. And removing the lever, you can see the keyhole where the ball end fits, and also the mechanical advantage the thumb screw has, as it's quite a bit further from the fulcrum. The saddle geometry is pretty well thought out. It's quite a shallow angle here, so the strings don't get hung up and they always return to come back to where they're supposed to. In my experience, you have to solder the plain strings, otherwise the wrap keeps slipping down the string. Side view of the saddle installed back on the bridge. There's a fulcrum again, and this is one of the weak points of the bridge, but a bit more on that later. And there's that sloppy high E tuner again. The arm is retained by a spring clip, 6mm in diameter. This arm and this block are homemade. The originals were lost or broken. The spring clip doesn't really keep the arm from rotating, so I wedged this bush in between the block and the plate. But that spring clip is original, swapped over from the broken block. The knife edges are on little raised wings that provided me with space for the rubber bush, and so now it does stay exactly where it's put. The intonation adjustment's quite interesting. You've got this hidden mechanism under the plate. You have to unlock the saddle and then you can drive it back and forward with a screw. Of course, you have to tail release all string tension. It's just a small thread in zinc alloy. It can't withstand the pull of the string. Yamaha do this on one or two other bridges as well. The knife edges have worn quite a bit, but they still work well. The saddles set the string heights and hence the radius, and they're all individual castings with their own casting numbers. I can't yet find any difference between the base saddles and the treble equivalents. Presumably there is some subtle difference. Does anyone know? As hinted earlier, weak points. The saddles evidently are prone to snapping at this thinnest point here. You can find pictures of these broken bridges for parts on Reverb or eBay. And the original block is here. You can see the armhole just snapped off. In my opinion, those 2mm walls are too thin to be made in zinc alloy. It needs to be steel to withstand the old 80s dive bombing. On the right-hand version of these bridges, there's a boss cast on the other side, but there's no hole, whereas the left-hand bridges have both holes. So it looks like to make the left-hand bridge, Yamaha reused right-hand castings. The right-hand hole is part of the casting, and the left-hand hole has been drilled after casting. I didn't know this one was broken when I bought it. If you are buying one, it's probably worth peeking down the side of the bridge. Can you swap it with a Floyd or a Gotoh? Well, the posts are 80mm apart, which is an orphan spacing as opposed to the more common 74mm spacing. So you'd have to do some woodwork, filling those post holes, re-drilling, removing the plastic cover underneath and enlarging the route. There's a few people on YouTube have done it. You can see the difference in fulcrum spacing and sizes of the RMX with the GE 1996T here. There's a bit more whale tail and a bit more plate to accommodate with the Gotoh. Some days I think I should fill and re-drill for a Gotoh. Other days I think it's interesting to keep this old dog from last century going. What would you do?